What's going on, everybody? Hit pause here with a quick little rundown on a pretty cool effect I got going on here inside of UE4. If I run around, obviously everything's normal. Got some extra geometry here now just to kind of display what's about to happen here. But when I hit a key, such as the M key, I can turn the whole world into the matrix. Okay, so I run around. Okay, you'll notice that it doesn't pan on the ground. It pans perfectly vertically, no matter where else I am. Okay, it's also happening on characters, objects, weapons, anything and everything in the entire scene pretty much. And if I hit the button again, it'll wipe it right back off. Okay, so it basically can be anything that you wanted it to be. And here we go again. It's totally world space aligned, so if I take this cube here and I were to rotate it, you can see that it has little to no bearing on what's happening. You can see it's still scrolling vertically no matter which way I rotate that. Okay. Whoa. Holy shit nuts. I'm flying. Look, you can see the distance happening there if I hit M. So, that was funny. Okay, so how did I do it? First off, I have a collection of parameters, okay, so that's how I'm controlling those in code. My code for my character is actually a little weird, but basically when I hit M, this is actually the distance of the skybox. Like, it's not me that's set 3.4 million units away. But one of the things that I've noticed that's weird, and the reason that this code is so long, is because, and I'm not going to explain the code, when you interp to something, if you're interping between a really huge value, it's really strange because you'll notice that when I'm interping upwards, I set the speed to 0.01, but when I'm interping down, I set it to 10, because for some weird reason, interping up to a really high value goes extremely fast, but when you interp down to 0 from a really high value, it goes much, much slower. Same interp. Okay, same thing. So this is getting set to either 3.4 million or 0. Every time I hit the button, it flip-flops. So when it comes, and it's just weird. I don't know why it does that, but that's a side note. As far as the material for this goes, number one, the really awesome thing about this is, good golly, Miss Molly, I'm way out here. Can I hit home? No. Can I double click? Yes. Okay. The cool thing about it is that number one, if I look at, say, the material on this guy, and let's go to his parent here, I don't got nothing here. So there's nothing in any of the materials on any of the objects in the scene itself. Everything here is just standard stuff. This will work if you dumped it into any project, completed or otherwise. You only need the one material to do this. It doesn't interfere with anything. That's the greatest thing about it. That is the biggest bonus. So the first thing that we have is an actual function here, and the function, I'm just going to kind of show it and go through it really quick. I'm using material collections, okay, for all of this stuff. So I have a distance size cutoff and I have a size here. I'm taking the scene depth and dividing it by another one called depth divisor. I'm adding that to my size, okay. I'm masking that to the red channel. I'm checking an if channel, and the reason for that is because if I hit play, you see how small things are getting in the distance? Like, they're almost fully green on the buildings, but if you notice, the sky is actually got a really large texture on there. That's because I actually separated them based on a distance, okay, which is distance size cutoff here is my B value. So anything greater than that gets this distance size multiplier added to the actual size. Okay, and again, I'm using scene depth for that. And distance size cutoff is a pretty high value. It's like 50,000. So anything beyond that is skybox, so I want it to be larger. I don't want the sky to be a solid green. I want it to actually look like numbers. That's why that exists. I'm using a world-aligned texture here, and I'm using a texture object, which has 3 channels, but I'm only using the red channel for now, which is just the letters, the numbers here, the zeros and the ones. It's just a simple 512 texture, there's nothing to it. For world position, to get the panning here, to get it so that it doesn't pan on the tops but it does pan on the sides of stuff, basically we take the raw world position and we get rid of the Z, okay? Then we take the Z from here and we add it to a parameter here that's multiplied by time, so we can determine the pan speed, and then we add that here, okay? So we add the pan speed and time to whatever the Z is, and then we just append that back onto the vector. So R and G are going to be static, and Z is going to constantly be going up or down depending on what you want it to. Input world normal is a vector that actually determines what direction do you want the alignment to actually take place. And I've actually made it an input for the function, okay? Now, because this is a texture object, I can't mask. You don't get RGB or A or here, and you actually cannot mask here either. But you can mask after the fact. So I just masked after here from the XYZ, simply multiply it by whatever color I want the thing to be, and then I hit that as the output. Okay. Back in the real material here, it's actually not that complicated. You can see there's not too much going on here, but basically what we do is on the world normal input, we separate it by the 3 different directions, X, Y, and Z. So we do the same material here, the same entire function, but we split them up based on that world normal. So we can say, okay, this is going to make sure that the texture is not stretched in X, this will make sure it's not stretched in Y, this will make sure it's not stretched in Z. Then we do scene texture world normal, which you can find here, scene texture, and you can actually tell it to pick the world normal here. Okay, we do that, and we just mask the different directions. Now this is going to mask in the X and the Y, but you got to remember that X does go negative. There's a negative X and a positive X, so we take the absolute value of that, and that will basically make it white on both sides of the X direction of everything in the entire world, in the entire scene. Okay, and we do the same thing with the Y. So this is X, this is Y, and this is Z. So we take those and we use those to basically just mask these together. So we lerp the Z over 0. Okay, this is our root. Here's our root value here is 0. Okay, so we take this Z over 0 using the Z masked normal map. World normal here. Then we mask the Y over that. Okay, so this goes to the Y, this goes to what we had for Z, and the alpha would be right here. Okay, then we do the X. We append a 1 on here because this is actually expecting a float 4. Now, that's actually the material straight up. Okay, that's the matrix material applied to everything. If I plug this straight in, it would be just on at all times. Okay, but what we do next is we basically take a scene depth and we divide it by however far we want that to be out, so we just get that in our range. We run a little contrast on it, which is actually isn't required, and basically what we do is I clamped it because just in case I get a super high value, and then I check if it's over 0.5. Anything over 0.5 becomes 1, anything below 0.5 becomes 0. I invert it because it was backwards, and then I use that to lerp this whole material over the scene texture itself, which is set to the post-process input. The scene material itself is set to before tone mapping down here in the post-process material here. That's got to be before tone mapping, and the material domain is post-process. And that is it. So if I take this collection parameter and I up the distance, you can see I can wipe it forward. Okay, and at about 3.4 million. It fills the entire skybox. Okay, I can edit the pan speed. I can slow that down if I wanted to. Okay, the size of it in the distance, I can change that. Okay, the distance cutoff, I can pull that back if I wanted to, but I don't, but I could. Okay, you can see that. So it was about like 600 or something. That's not actually in like direct world units. Okay. Again, pan speed, I got distance size, depth divisor. If I pull this down, I can actually do a secondary wipe of solid black before I actually wipe out the matrix effect itself. Okay, so I have separate controls there if I really wanted to. So I could trail behind black. I could start the world black and then it goes like this. It fills in like that. And then it fills in with a, fills in with the scene as it comes back. And there's your whole scene. So that's it. That's all there is to it. And this would be especially handy. Stop saving. This would be particularly handy for full scene. Okay, full scene. Make sure you let that bleed into your head. Like weather effects such as rain. Because on the top here we got no movement. We got a little bit, but that's just from the power that I added. But you'll notice that we've got perfect vertical panning no matter what angle the object is at. Okay, it only pans down in the Z. It'll never pan left and right on accident. So really good for dripping raindrops, right? You can see it in the center here is nothing, but on the sides it starts to go. It's panning down this side, also panning down this side. So very good for running rain and pooling on the top here. But keep in mind that because this is a scene effect, there is no way to say, hey, I'm inside a building, it's raining outside, but it's not raining in here. That's impossible. That's actually impossible. The only way to do that would be to add some kind of insane, or it's just some kind of different value on the inside surface of where you're supposed to be, and turn off the mask at that point. That's going to be too difficult, because you got to remember that when we're dealing with materials, we're not dealing with variables, right? If we're going to read anything from the material, it's going to be the pixel value. There's no such thing as a variable in the material, which is unfortunate. But also, you got to understand too is that the beauty of this thing is also its weakness, right? This applies to the whole world, no matter what. That's a weakness and a strength. The strength being, it applies to the whole world. You don't have to. You could add this effect to a completed game, a game that's been 10 years in production with thousands and thousands of objects and materials, and it will just blast across that whole surface. Whereas what you'd normally expect is, if you wanted to do something like this in a game with thousands and thousands of objects and materials, you'd have to add some kind of a function or something to every single material that any of these ever referenced, which would be dog shit. In this case, you don't have to do that, right? We have a scene effect that is literally overriding the whole world and reading the normals. Officially, cleanly reading the normals of everything. Doesn't matter if I have no materials whatsoever. Why is that up there? Get back in your spat. So that's it. That's how you do like a matrix or weather type effect across the whole world. They're very good for adding snow to everything if you wanted to. Again, remember, this would work particularly well for outdoors, particularly well for spawn effects, or just like say, hey, you know, I've gone into Silent Hill mode, you know, like I'm in the darkness version of the whole world, you know, everything's going to take on this scary tone, or everything's going to basically turn into the Matrix, like, you know, kind of like this kind of thing. Obviously this isn't the Matrix, but, you know, we have numbers and shit going down, so that was kind of the, you know, the concept. The one thing I don't know how to do is to get a complete world wireframe wipe, because wireframe is not something that the scene can read that I know of. I'm going to look into it a little bit more, but I was hoping to get a wireframe of the whole world that you could wipe, but I couldn't figure it out. But again, I mean, it works on, you know, it's literally on everything. You can see even camera objects, you know, it's the camera component to this character. It's working on the text render here, you know. It's not working on billboards and sprites. That's the one thing it's not working on, because they are depth independent. They don't have any scene depth. You can see that it basically stays the same size. But this, even though this particular sprite doesn't, it still doesn't count as scene depth. It's still not able to read that. But everything else does, literally. Everything else, including the skybox and stuff. If you delete the skybox, you get the background color, and it's not going to work on that. But again, it just depends on how big your skybox is and whether or not you actually want the effect on the skybox. But in this case, I kind of did. You could do a whole bunch of weird stuff to warp it out to make it kind of like follow the player and shit too, so that people would get kind of, if you really wanted to make people sick while they were playing the game. But the concept that I was going to use it for was basically for a spawn effect. That was the idea that I had. When you spawn into maps that are actually like a holodeck type simulation kind of thing. Now again, it's not completed or anything like that, but it would kind of, you know, the camera would come in like this, and once it was ready, you know, once you were ready to play, it would just kind of do this effect here and pull in. Actually, it'd probably be just best if I had. So, you know, it would start looking like this, and as soon as you know, you're ready, it would go, you know, like that, and then the real world would show up. And then maybe if you died or something, it could do this kind of effect as you digitized out of it or some shit. You know, I mean, you know, there's a million things that you could do, I think, with it. But it works good. Completely working pretty much everywhere. Enough to get you kind of sick. You'll notice that the background doesn't appear to be panning. The fact is that it actually is, but the other fact is that it is so far away and so huge, it's like literally trying to see the universe expand. It's so big and panning so slow due to that size that it's officially under the precision level of our floating point values. So it actually is not going to move. It's too low. If I boosted the pan speed fast enough to get the sky to move, everything here just becomes like a noisy, blurry mess. Now, there's nothing stopping me from saying, hey, at that distance, read the scene depth. If the scene depth, you know, just do the same cutoff and make it so that the sky panned. And I did get it working so that this was panning and the sky was panning too. But I didn't like it. It was making me sick. It was giving me like a headache, and I didn't like it. So I killed the panning on the sky. So it just, you need something in the scene to ground yourself, right? So that would be it for me anyway. So you guys can do whatever you want there. There's a million tricks and stuff that you could do. But yeah, overall the main fundamental awesome factor about this whole thing is, holy crap, a world aligned full screen effect that is gonna apply over everything regardless of what the materials are. It'll work 100%. On terrain, anything, all houses, if you're in a corridor, all that stuff. So there we go. And it's cool. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that and found it useful, and let me know if you did. And you guys can always comment, like, and subscribe and all that fun stuff if you enjoy my videos. catch you, and I'm gonna throw you. Oh, it got killed by the kill box. Anyways, yeah, HitPaw signing off. Thanks for watching. I need to, just in case you're wondering why that's happening, it's because I have some kind of crazy interim value right there that I left. And that's it. Thanks.